This is the San Francisco 49ers Report by Chat Sports. I'm Chase Sr., and no matter where you are, how you're tuned in, as always, I greatly appreciate you for making today's show a part of your day. Coming up, how to make the Niners great again. This has been a maddening and frustrating season for San Francisco. That Super Bowl hangover has been real. They are looking, playing, and coaching like a broken football team. And on top of that, topic number 2, I'm going to go through some players who the Niners need to get rid of following the 2024 season to have a little bit of a reset for this organization. Let's begin right here. Here's how the San Francisco 49ers can become great again. I don't think the gap is as wide as an ocean. I think about what Bill Belichick said last week on the Pat McAfee show, and he was discussing how when you lose close games, especially in an ugly fashion like the Niners have this year, that gap is really small, but when you lose games in a bad manner, the gap seems like an ocean. But I don't think we're at a point where the Niners need to rebuild. I think they need a reset, and they need to retool. Number 2, I think San Francisco has to hire Robert Saleh as defensive coordinator and fire Nick Sorensen. Nick Sorensen is in over his skis, and I think that Saleh coming back would be a great move for this defense and help that unit get back on track. They haven't played at an elite level like they were for a few years under Saleh, like they were under DeMeco Ryans. Statistically, they were okay to solid, sometimes pretty good under Steve Wilks, but this year, it has just been an unmitigated disaster on the defensive side of the football. Another coaching change, I think Kyle Shanahan has to fire Brian Schneider as the special teams coordinator. Since 2020, this has been a mediocre to awful unit every single year in every single category, and it's really cost San Francisco in a lot of big games. I do think Kyle Shanahan, too, needs to hire an offensive coordinator. Have somebody in that role that Mike McDaniel was in a few years ago and have a fresh set of eyes and ideas on this offense, because the offense has become predictable and a little bit too stale. San Francisco needs to rebuild their offensive line. Goodbye, Aaron Banks. Sayonara, Jake Brendel. Colton McKivitz, I wish I never knew you. 3/5 of the offensive line need to change, and San Francisco has to get better, more physical, and outright just more talented up front in the trenches. Let's turn the page. San Francisco also needs to get younger and more depth along the defensive line. A big reason why they wear down in games, they don't have enough talent or depth up front. George Kittle's having a great year. If he's able to stay healthy for the remainder of the season, I think he's on his way potentially to becoming a back-to-back first-team All-Pro. And I wouldn't mind signing him to a contract extension, as 2025 is the final year of his deal. I think he's still playing at a really high level, critical to this Niners offense in a variety of ways. But any good business has to plan for the future, and the Niners haven't been able to get tight end 2 right. So drafting a young tight end 2, I think, is very important for this team, and I'd like to see 2 tight end sets where that other tight end is actually a pass-catching threat, unlike Eric Saubert. Deommodore Lenoir and Renardo Green are the Niners' future at the cornerback spot. So let Charvarius Ward go and build the secondary around those 2 promising young players, one of which you signed to a contract extension last week. Add depth to corner, linebacker, and safety, and let these young wide receivers develop. I want to see more from Ricky Pearsall. I want to see more from Jacob Cowing. You hope that Brandon Ayuk is going to be able to come back after that catastrophic knee injury, and as part of that, I would let Deebo Samuel go after the 2024 season, and I'll talk about that coming up here in just a moment. As for what the Niners have to do with Brock Purdy, Brock Purdy has had an up-and-down 2024 season. Throughout his career, he has played at a top 10 level. I don't just think that he's a system quarterback or Kyle Shanahan makes him the quarterback that he's been, but he's been a little bit erratic. He's been inconsistent. And against some quality defenses this year, he's had some poor performances. He's been one of the best bargain deals across the NFL throughout his rookie contract at under $1 million. 2025 is the final year of his deal. I don't think it's crazy to ask Brock Purdy to play on an expiring contract. And this is why. When you are paying a player or thinking about investing in a quarterback, $50 to $60 million, you have to be sure that that investment is going to be worth it. And right now, the jury is out on Brock Purdy. We're not sure if he's worthy of making $50 to $60 million per year. And if you miss on that contract and Purdy doesn't end up developing into an upper echelon quarterback and continue his maturation process and continue to ascend in this league, he can really hold this organization back. So having him play on an expiring deal, I don't think it's a poor route to go when you look ahead for this team. All of these issues that I talk about, in my opinion, are fixable. They are doable, and they are realistic. The 49ers as a team still have plenty of talent, and I believe in a lot of the talent on this ball club. You have another draft class in 2025 like you did in 2024, things are looking promising in the future. I think this is more so a down year for the Niners in 2024, where they don't necessarily have to rebuild, but instead they have to reset and retool. Keep in mind that this team has played a lot of football over the last 5 years. They've had shorter off seasons. They've had a lot of injuries. They play a physical brand of football. Mentally, I think they're a little bit checked out. Sometimes that's what happens when you play 4 NFC titles and 2 Super Bowls over the course of 5 years and you have shorter off seasons. Because look at how the Niners stack up right now. These numbers aren't bad, and you can work off of these numbers, and these numbers give you hope that if you correct some issues here, you can get both sides of the ball on track with better coaching, with some tweaks schematically, with player health, with just doing a better job top to bottom as an organization. The Niners are 13th in points per game. That severely dropped after only scoring 10 points against the Green Bay Packers. They're 4th in yards per game, 2nd in yards per play, 6th on third downs, but 25th in the red zone a year after they were number 1. And then defensively, definitely have to make some wholesale changes there. 20th in points per game, 6th in yards per game, 6th in yards per play. Not bad numbers, but this is coaching right here, in my opinion. They're terrible on third downs, terrible in the red zone, and that's why I think it's best to move off of Nick Sorensen. Coming up next, anytime you do reset, you have some difficult decisions to make. So, we're going to take a look at some players who the Niners need to get rid of, which will help you make schematic changes, personnel changes, culture changes, and locker room changes. And the 2 men leading those decisions, Kyle Shanahan and John Lynch. Our sponsor for today's show, our friends at PrizePicks, join the largest independently run daily fantasy platform in North America with over 10 million active users and billions of dollars handed out in awarded winnings. It's daily fantasy sports made easy. You pick 2 or more players, you choose more or less on their projected stats, and you can win up to 100 times your money. All you have to do is head to prizepicks.com/CLNS, and right now you get $50 when you play $5. You don't even need to win to receive that $50 bonus. It's guaranteed. I also really like some of the specials that PrizePicks has. For instance, when you look ahead to Thanksgiving, there is a free square for Tyreek Hill. That's an easy win. All he has to do is get more than 1/2 of a receiving yard. So get $50 when you play $5. PrizePicks.com/CLNS. That link is hanging out down in the comment section and in the show notes of today's Niners Report. Now keep in mind, a lot of people will call me a traitor. A lot of people will call me a hater. In the NFL, the league also stands for not for long, right? Players aren't going to last forever, and businesses make changes. Organizations make changes. Sports franchises have to make changes. And when you're retooling the roster, you have some tough decisions to make, like moving off of some franchise icons, some players who fans are emotionally attached to, some homegrown players who have been with this organization for a very long time. As for the Niners' cap situation, right now, they have the number 1 most cap space in the NFL at $52.2 million. They can carry that money over from 2024 to 2025. In 2025, without any contract restructures, without any cuts, trades, or releases, they're still in a decent spot. Halfway mark in the NFL, 18th most cap space at $42.2 million. With that, I would say goodbye, or at least entertain the possibility of moving on from these veteran players, either by way of trade, cutting them, releasing them, or letting them walk in free agency. Wide receiver Deebo Samuel, fullback Kyle Juszczyk, cornerback Charvarius Ward, defensive tackle Javon Hargrave, safety Talanoa Hufanga, right tackle Colton McKivitz, center Jake Brendel, guard Aaron Banks, and linebacker Devondre Campbell. Let's run through all of these players, player by player. Why move on from Deebo? Since he signed that contract extension going into the 2022 season, there have been a lot of availability and production concerns. I also worry how he ages with his playing style. When he was at his peak, when he was playing well last year in moments, especially back in 2021, when he was used as a wide back, when he was used on jet sweeps, end arounds, bubble screens, when he was running over cats, picking up yards after the catch, running through defenders, he played in a very violent way. But now we're seeing that maybe he's slowed down a little bit. So how does Deebo continue to age with that playing style? And I think as an organization, you need to adjust the scheme, you need to adjust the culture, and you need to make some financial decisions, which moving on from Deebo Samuel allows you to do that. You also think about what the Niners did as an organization. Their actions spoke volumes when they drafted Ricky Pearsall, drafted Jacob Cowing, and then re-signed Brandon Ayuk. They also extended Juwan Jennings. So they're thinking, yeah, we might move on from Deebo Samuel, and they even admitted that they had trade conversations surrounding his name during the 2024 offseason. Also, when you look at the draft and you think about the draft year in and year out, it is always loaded with wide receiver talent. Why get rid of Kyle Juszczyk? I think Kyle Shanahan has to make some offensive adjustments. Start using more 3 to 4 wide receiver sets. Spread it out. Let Brock Purdy cook. Go with less condensed formations, and that can also help the running game, and just evolve, adapt, get more creative on the offensive side of the football. I don't think that you need to pay a fullback a lot of coin in today's NFL. You can find a cheap fullback if you want one on your roster who isn't making $5-6 million. And so I think that could be a financial and scheme type of change that the Niners make. For Deommodore Lenoir and Renardo Green, I love their future as the starting outside tandem at the cornerback spot for this team. Last week, the Niners gave Lenoir a 5-year, $92 million contract extension. They did that knowing he's a young, emerging, improving player who's given up 4 touchdowns in coverage in what is now his 4 seasons in the National Football League. They paid the younger player in Lenoir, and they're going to let the older player in Charvarius Ward walk because another team will give him $15+ million if they need a cornerback who last year was an all-pro player. The Javon Hargrave signing has been a massive disappointment for San Francisco. 4-year, $84 million deal. Last year, he played at a suboptimal level. This year, lasted a few games before tearing his triceps, out for the year. He's a defensive tackle who can't stop the run. The Niners stopping the run over the last couple of years has been a huge issue for them, and it's caused a lot of defensive problems. Move on from Javon Hargrave, admit that the signing was a mistake, and eat your losses. For Talanoa Hufanga, maybe he comes back on a 1-year prove-it deal, but given that he's been an impactful player, he's always around the football, making game-changing plays, I think a team in free agency, even though he tore his ACL last year and then has suffered a couple of injuries this year, ankle and then wrist ligaments, they might decide to give him a multi-year deal. And if he gets that, he's probably going to take it because he hasn't made a lot of money as a 5th-round pick in this league. So maybe he comes back to the Niners on a 1-year prove-it deal. San Francisco's defense has really missed him since he went out last year with that knee injury. But he's also barely played any football the last 2 years. And I do think he's going to get paid. As for the 3 offensive linemen, Aaron Banks, Jake Brendel, Colton McKivitz. It's simple. They're not good enough. The Niners get manhandled up front, and those players are just burnt toast and revolving doors. They stink, and the Niners as a team need to start investing more money and draft capital into the offensive line. You hit on Dominic Pooney, work off that momentum. Devondre Campbell, a liability against the pass. San Francisco has really missed Dre Greenlaw this year. His loss loomed large in the Super Bowl, and that's carried over into 2024. Be sure to give me a follow, by the way, for more Niners coverage on my social media pages. I'm on X at Chase_Senior and on Instagram at Chase_Senior.